Well, James T. Kirk will be happy to know I am currently taking the Kobayashi Maru test. The no-win scenario is reviewing this movie. That's right, whatever side you fall on with Ghostbusters, you're going to piss off one half of the internet. As a man who has accepted that fact, let's review it. Ghostbusters. So Ghostbusters is a remake of Ghostbusters, this time all-female cast. This one stars Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Leslie Jones, and Kate McKinnon as the four Ghostbusters, with Chris Hemsworth, aka Thor, as their unusually stupid receptionist, and now let's bust some ghosts. Alright, so let's be honest about it. The trailer campaign leading up to this movie, it was horrible, it sucked, this movie looked like a bag of shit. And now that I've seen the movie's not as bad as it looked like it was, and yet it's not as good as you might want it to be. There were some good things in this movie for sure. This movie had me chuckling quite often throughout the movie, which is a lot more than I thought it was gonna do. I never belly laughed in the movie. I wanted to belly laugh. Dude, I'm a grown-ass man. I've seen a lot of comedies out there make me belly laugh. Didn't do it. But the movie made me consistently chuckle because this film has quippy, snappy dialogue. It has pop culture references, other movie references. I'm a sucker for movie references. What can I say? Standouts in this movie were Leslie Jones and Kate McKinnon. Funny because Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy are the biggest names in this movie, but nope. Those two contributed the most to this movie. I thought they had the best lines. I thought they had the best delivery. I felt they added the most to this movie. However, this movie has the misfortune of calling itself Ghostbusters. I feel like you could have tweaked the premise a little bit and made a movie that pays homage to Ghostbusters but made it their own thing, but they decided to make it Ghostbusters in that this movie's gonna be compared to the original, and it does nothing that the original does. Granted, the original Ghostbusters came out when the concept of Ghostbusters was bafflingly brand new. It was groundbreaking. Really nothing in Hollywood's going to be groundbreaking these days, especially if you're making a remake of something that came out in the 80s. And you shouldn't always compare the remake to the original. The remake should stand on its own. You shouldn't have to compare it to the original. Maybe it's unfair to compare it to the original. But you know what? I'm a human being and I can't help but compare it to the original in my head. Secrets out. I'm just a human being. Don't know if it's a character flaw. It might be, but it happened. A quick example is the fact the villain in this movie, he really did nothing for me. There was nothing about the villain that made me think, oh my gosh, that's relevant. He's bad news. I mean, he was a little shithead for sure, and bad things are gonna go down. The stakes are high by the end of this movie. But in the original, Dana Barrett was dating one of the Ghostbusters. She got possessed, and so now the bringing on of the main villain in the apocalypse is tied to a romantic interest among the Ghostbusters, and that makes it personal. That gives it gravity, it gives it weight. This one is just kind of somebody. That's what I mean by you can't help but compare it to the original and how the original just did that premise better. And Chris Hemsworth's comic relief, the first couple times you're like, oh, he's dumb and he did a dumb thing. By the end of this movie, you're like, how many times are you gonna beat it over our heads that Chris Hemsworth is dumb and does dumb shit? Yeah, his character, he's not bright. We get it. It's made it a bit awkward when they beat the same joke over your head 100 times. And as much as this movie wants to stand on its own as its own film, it has so many throwbacks and Easter eggs to the original, you can't help but be like, are you standing on your own or are you riding the coattails of the original? Kind of reminds me of someone who tells off their parents like, you know what, I'm moving out, I'm independent, I'm strong, I can make it on my own. Can I borrow 20 bucks? Oh, okay. Bit of a mixed signal, but sure. And the pacing in this movie, at a point I was like, this movie is a bit boring. And I say that because they bust one ghost in the entire thing. Until the end. I mean, the end climax in the trailer, you see all the ghosts and all the craziness. Yeah, they do their fair share of kicking ass there. One scene in particular, Kate McKinnon steals the show and everyone in the audience clapped, and I wanted to too, because that was actually a pretty kick-ass scene. Good job. But leading up to that, they bust one ghost. Granted, that's pretty much what they do in the original Ghostbusters, but the original Ghostbusters, although they montage through all the ghost busting, the movie set up an atmosphere that makes you feel like these guys are getting shit done. They're taking care of business. They're busting ghosts in their town. This one ghost until the very end. So in the lack of ghost busting in this Ghostbusters relies on the quippy dialogue to carry the movie through. In the end, this Ghostbusters movie is not as bad as some people want it to be, and it's not as good as some people want it to be. It just kind of is. And that's where this movie falls. It's not hot, not cold. It has some enjoyment, but in the end, it's lukewarm. But for a Ghostbusters movie, I could have gotten for some better pacing, a better villain, and some more ghost busting. This is me telling you I cannot look you bold face and say, hey, go out and see it right now. Pay full price in 3D. So I will say Ghostbusters would probably be a better time if it had better pacing and you were drunk. Yeah, now it's a party. Dun, 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 dun. It's a good beat though. I like that song. It's true. This movie does have a good mix of the original Ghostbusters song. It was the one in the trailer. I just like that beat. In the end credits, when that song's over, it goes into that horrible one that no one wants to listen to. But the first, that was a good beat. All right, so the new Ghostbusters. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Was it as good as you wanted it to be? Was it as bad as you wanted it to be? Whatever you think, whatever you thought, comment below. Let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.